For January, I think the big sort of talking points, I think we both share the opinion over Ronaldo. So probably don't want to waste too much time on that because we've both written and spoken about it enough. My last podcast, we touched on the Ronaldo thing. So just quickly, Adam, should Chelsea sign Ronaldo in January?
No. I've made my opinion very clear on this. In work calls, we've discussed it as well. No, absolutely not. I just think it would cause far too many problems, far more problems than it would solve.
Maybe if we were able to play a 4-4-3 formation, then we'd bring him in, but unfortunately not. But let's get into those transfer targets. I think the first one that comes to mind actually won't be signing in January, but will be arriving, we think, in 2023, and that's Christopher Nkunku, who's obviously got an injury problem at the current point. I think a ligament problem where he's obviously missed the World Cup for France. Won't be back to around January, February time, I think. But it still seems like Chelsea are going ahead with this still. It's a massive one. I instinctively have flashbacks, cold sweats to another exciting Leipzig forward. Try and calm my nerves, Adam, because I have to say that was my gut instinct when we started being linked to Nkunku.
Yeah, well, it seems the outline of a deal is very much in place now for next summer. There was some talk about maybe trying to bring it forward until January, but I don't think that's going to happen, partly because of his injury, but also because Leipzig are still in the Champions League. I mean, I don't have the same. To be honest, I didn't really have any misgivings about Timo Werner until he arrived, and then realised quite soon on this isn't going to work. I think what goes in Christopher Nkunku's favour is that technically he's probably on another level to Timo Werner. He doesn't require 40 yards of space to run into to be really effective. He's excellent in tight spaces with the ball. He's very intelligent with his movement. He is just a very well-rounded footballer, and ultimately it's difficult almost to be excited about an attacking player arriving at Chelsea because we've been burned so many times before. But you'd like to think he has the skill set that is very adaptable to the Premier League. He's a player who can be used in different positions across the front line depending on the sort of game state. And ultimately he may be a player that can unlock a couple of other players because of his ability. It's a big price tag that's going to be on him. And yes, we do have the consideration it's the Bundesliga, but I think you also have to look at his performances in the Champions League as well. He's had some very big performances in the Champions League against Premier League sides as well. So I'm cautiously optimistic when it comes to Nkunku.
Mason Mount, obviously contract talks are a big thing at the moment. They tied up Reece James. We felt that Mason was kind of the second part of that. There were some kind of scare stories before the World Cup about it not progressing that well, and in other reports saying that it had progressed. Are we more on the positive side with him? I suspect we are, right? I mean, it seems like on both sides there being a willingness to get this done.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more on the positive side. The noises I've heard for a little while are essentially that Mason is probably hesitant or more hesitant to sign as long a deal as the likes of Armando Broja and Reece James have signed. I think they both signed 6-year deals. That isn't that ordinary in European football. Usually it's 5 at the most, and I think that's maybe a bit of a sticking point for Mount. Maybe understandably so. It's a contract that should take him, through his peak years if it was 6 years. So I can understand that. But yeah, he is a guy who's been at Chelsea his whole career. He loves the club. He is Chelsea's most effective attacking player, even though he would consider himself a number 8. I think that may be something that he wants some assurances over because, yes, he has done a job and at times a very good job in the forward line, but he sees himself as an 8, and I think would like to play there regularly because he has been chopped and changed, and maybe that has actually hindered his development to an extent that he hasn't sort of had a position to call his own and really sort of perfect. But yeah, I mean, as things stand, I'm still optimistic that a deal will be agreed and he'll stay on at Chelsea for seasons to come, much to the chagrin of certain people.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping for the 10-year contract and for Declan Rice to sign on the same day. You could just leave the announcement till August, and then we can announce both on the same day, smiling, 10-year Mount contract, 7-year Declan Rice contract. It's all good. And watch Twitter crumble. More so than whatever Elon Musk can do at the moment. Chelsea could do it in one day. Midfield, as I just referenced with Rice there, I think targets is a little bit unknown at the moment, right? Because Edson Alvarez was kind of a very late one in the window. We got Dennis Zakaria. I more want to ask you about the players we currently have, because I think they're as more... N'Golo Kante and Jorginho, to me, feel as they're quite clearly linked to this, and they're as defining to the way this goes, because are we going to give them a new contract? They're senior players. It's going to cost quite a bit if we do commit funds to them. I just want to hear quickly sort of your thoughts on both players, because Kante, his ongoing injury problems, but we know how extraordinary a talent he can be when he is fit. And Jorginho, Mr. Durable, but someone who, has a lot of doubts lingering over his head regarding sort of his longevity and whether Chelsea need to upgrade on him.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously very difficult in terms of Kante, because he's going to hopefully be back come February, and then he'll have 5 months left on his contract. I don't think you want to be giving him a new deal before then, because of the matches he's missed. You don't know exactly how he's going to come back. I mean, if he came back and had another injury issue, I mean, it very much makes the decision for you. So I think that'll be put on the back burner. I mean, Jorginho, I've not heard this personally, but there have been reports that he'd like his wage increase to stay. I'm not sure that would be the smartest move on Chelsea's part. I think Jorginho's had some very, very good moments and spells in his Chelsea career. I mean, he was, alongside Kante, brilliant on the run to the Champions League. Maybe hasn't hit those heights over the last 12 months. So it's an intriguing one in terms of the Chelsea project or process, or however you want to frame it, because these are two guys that, in their 30s now. Do you really want to move away from them, or do you really want to keep them when they're not necessarily going to be key figures in the team in 2 or 3 years' time? So at the moment, I'd probably just sit tight and wait and see how it materialises. Of course, you then run the risk of them agreeing pre-contracts with other clubs, but from my perspective, I think you just have to be patient, because we know midfield is a position that Todd Bowley and the ownership want to look at, or already are looking at improving next summer. Whether or not they'll do that in January, I think the big thing for me, and this is something I'm still trying to actually clear up, is who will be running the January window from a Chelsea perspective, because we do have a couple of the new recruitment team in already, a couple more on gardening leave. Is it going to be Bowley again who's leading everything? Are we going to have a more of a collective approach? That still hasn't probably been clarified to me. I mean, and I don't think it's come out anywhere else yet exactly who will be sort of leading the transfer business for Chelsea. So once we can establish that, maybe we'll have a better understanding of what Chelsea will be doing in January and how they'll approach it.
Do we know Vivell? I know Football London were reporting at the time about him having talks with Chelsea. That seemed to stall. I mean, is that still progressing? I know obviously the other ones have been announced. 3 of the 4, I think, have been announced. Vivell's the one that's still kind of a little bit unknown where that is.
Well, he left Leipzig, it must have been about a month ago, 6 weeks ago now, and there remains this expectation that he is joining Chelsea. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but I've not heard anything to the contrary over the last few weeks that he isn't going to join Chelsea. So, there were some sort of whispers that he might be announced alongside Winstanley, but that never happened. So, unless something really, really strange has happened in the last couple of weeks, he is still expected to join Chelsea in the future.
Yeah, hopefully no one from Barcelona has been in contact. That's all I'm hoping for, touch wood. Thank you so much, Adam, for joining me today and giving up your time. Just quickly, who's going to win the World Cup?
Well, I've got Spain in the office sweepstake, and I'm half Spanish, so I'm going to say Spain, and I'm going to hedge my bets and say England, because why not?
Fair enough. Like it here. Thank you so much for joining, and as well, go over to Football London, check out Adam's work at Adam Newson on Twitter. That's where you can find all of his work as well. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. If you have enjoyed the podcast, give us a rate and review. It really does help out. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads. And we will see you again very soon. All the best.